Wendell City is a melting pot of all kinds of people. The western part of the city is a glittering commercial center. In the eastern part of the city, spitting gray smoke, are the towering smokestacks of the industrial district. A figure looming in the misty air is a middle-aged man named Murray walking alone. He is a mid-level manager of a large company. He is tall and thin, with thin-framed glasses on his face. Gray-black hair with a slightly high hairline and slightly pale, tired skin that blends in with the gray of the air. In the eyes of his colleagues, he was a nice guy who always grinned and bear it. He always had a reluctant smile on his face. To put it nicely, he was a congenial person. But in reality, he was confused and disoriented about life. He was not sure what the purpose and meaning of his life was. Every day he does the same job, sees the same people, eating the same food, wearing the same clothes, living the same life, letting the waves of time lap and oscillate. On this day, Murray was walking home on a familiar road. It was an unpopulated industrial road on the eastern edge of the city. There was a small lake beside the road. Every day after work, he always used to bring a cup of coffee and linger here for a while before going home. But today was different. There was a boat on the lake. A strange boat with a miniature wooden house and a faint yellow light from the small window. Next to it was an unassuming wooden sign that read the Seaside Café. A fishing boat? No, how could there be a fishing boat here? On second glance, it couldn't be a cafe, he thought to himself. He leaned close to the window and looked inside. He could see a few paintings hanging on the wall. On the shelf next to it was what looked like coffee equipment. Curiosity prompted him to enter the house. As soon as he pushed the door open, a warm coffee smell mixed with hazelnut aroma came to his nose. Compared to the exterior, the inside of the store is unreasonably large. There are several groups of seats in front of you, but no one is there. And deep inside the store is the bar. There was an elegant lady standing there, smiling. When she saw Murray, she said, "Welcome. Where do you want to drift tonight?" Murray froze for a moment and muttered, "Drifting?" The lady then said, "Hello, I am the owner, Yuria. There is still a little time before the departure. Can I get you anything?" Murray asked while sitting down, "What a special place. Why didn't I notice it before? Is this really a coffee shop? How could it be in such a place?" Yuria said, "We only show up when people need it. Don't worry, the night has just begun. Would you like to order a cup of coffee first?" Murray looked at the menu on the table. He found that there was only one item, called Ocean Drift. Although he had a lot of questions, but Murray still ordered a cup of coffee, quietly waiting. "Okay, you sit down for a moment. It's about time, it's time to set sail," said Yuria. At the end of the sentence, there was a sudden slight shaking. "The ship seems to really sail." Murray looked at the window, found farther and farther from the shore. Murray calmed down a bit and took a closer look. The store is not big, but it is well decorated. There are many portraits hanging on the wall, in which various characters are happily drinking coffee. In one corner of the wall, there is an old vinyl record player. Murray was absorbed in the paintings. Suddenly, he got a shock. The person in the painting seems to have winked at him. "Enjoy your meal." In the blink of an eye, a cup of coffee was delivered to him. This cup of coffee had a special aroma that had never been heard of before. Yuria said, adding magic iron flour and seagull's feather to it. "Don't worry, it's perfectly safe. Please take your time." She showed a smile like a prank. Murray did not doubt to take a sip. He involuntarily closed his eyes and felt the complex aroma. Fruity, floral, nutty, herbal, and a woody special scent. Then came the salty smell of the ocean. Even the sound of seagulls came to my ears. Murray was overjoyed and opened his eyes to ask Yuria about the coffee. He rubbed his eyes incredulously. The beach and blue sky around him were so familiar and real. Wasn't it at the coffee shop just now? He pinched his cheek. Ouch. This is not a hallucination. What is this situation? A feeling of panic came over me. Suddenly, the sound of a little boy playing attracted him. He shouted while chasing after him to understand the situation. But the more he chased the boy, the farther he got. This series of inexplicable events made him panic. He kept running, chasing, shouting, and venting. The road seemed to have no end. It was like being lost at home. This reassurance, confusion, and anxiety stirred together, making him feel breathless. He stopped and stared blankly ahead. After calming down, take a closer look. In the distance, a house could be seen through a gap in the trees. Instinct drove him to run wildly. He forgot the last time he was so desperate. The house, in an instant, was in front of his eyes. But isn't this the house where Grandma lived? The two big trees at the door were something he would never forget. When he came to the door, he saw his favorite toy airplane from his childhood and he picked it up. He shouted, "Grandma." When the door opened, he was like a seagull's falling feather, wobbling and falling over and over again. As he looked at the plane in his hands, the light in the doorway above his head grew smaller and smaller. He cried, crying like a child who couldn't open his eyes. At that moment, the body was held by an object. When he opened his eyes, he found himself in his bedroom bed. He couldn't tell if it was a dream or a hallucination. He rushed out the door and saw a familiar living room, a familiar kitchen, and a familiar street outside the window. He finally felt a sigh of relief. But what was the experience just now? He had no clue. Looking at the toy airplane in his hand, he became even more confused. His life hadn't been this stressful and exhausting in a long time. Throwing all this bullshit to the back of his mind, he fell into bed, paralyzed, and fell asleep. He hadn't slept this deeply in a long time. After a long night, the sun shone outside and came into the house. He remembered yesterday's experience in front of the bathroom mirror and still couldn't believe it. But looking at the toy airplane he found, it was definitely a toy from his childhood. Because on the plane, there were words that he and his grandmother had carved together. He decided to leave work today and go back to the place where it all started. The coffee shop. Find out what's going on.